everyone, and welcome to iCritic Live. This is the podcast where we talk about entertainment, pop culture, and life in between. I'm your host, Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net, and thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time with me today. And today we are going to be talking a lot of business, a lot of, marketing, things like that. It might seem a little droll at first, but I have a point. So here's the thing. Today, Bob Iger did like a little bit of a talk at a presentation. It was an investor conference that happened, and he came out and they made some announcements, things like that. And he also addressed, how the business was doing. Now, one of the things he mentioned was that he was going to cut down on spending for linear TV. That makes perfect sense. Linear TV is not making the money it once was. But interestingly, when asked about streaming, it was not sunshine and roses, and he commented on basically that Disney kind of messed up with the streaming thing. According to him, he said, as we got into the streaming business in a very, very aggressive way, we tried to tell too many stories. Basically, we invested too much, way ahead of possible returns. It's what led to streaming ending up as a $4 billion loss. And he continued as he referenced the fallout with his hand-picked CEO successor, Bob Chapek. It was clear to me that our structure was not working because we were removing accountability from those that were basically investing the most capital was a mistake. And the result of spending more on content resulted in volume and not quality, which turned out to be a mistake as well. And he added, there's a very fine line you can cross and get into trouble if your volume ends up diluting management's attention to what is being made right. And that's what happened to us. So I have pulled that back. Now, of course, he's going to put it as like we spent too much, which they did. There was more quantity than quality. That is true. But one of the things that I really wish these CEOs would admit, and I mean, I don't know if he could ever admit this because he made Disney Plus, and if they admitted this, then they would basically have to get out of the streaming business. Because the thing about streaming is that a lot of it is really based off the Spotify model. I know that technically Netflix was first, but when you look at what happened with Spotify and the music industry, they should realize why this never was going to work. And why streaming, even though it's here, and it's probably here to stay, is going to result in a lot less money being made overall. So, for those of you who are not as old as I am, I remember, and I think it was 2011 or 12, when I first heard about Spotify. And it's like, it's this service where you can stream as many songs as you want. It's legal. It will not result in, spyware or hackware on your computers. You can listen to whatever you want, and then basically you just have to listen to some ads. Now, eventually they added the paid tier where you can skip the ads. For the record, I don't think I've been subscribed to Spotify more than just a few months out of my entire life. I've just never had the need to pay for it. And when I first downloaded Spotify, and keep in mind, it was just on the computer. It wasn't on your phone or anything like that. I remember how cool it was. It's like, oh yeah, I can type in this album and I can listen to the whole thing. I can type in this album and I can listen to the whole thing. Now, a couple things happened. First of all, I seem to be listening to albums on repeat less because there's just so much stuff to listen to now that it's hard for albums to get a foothold in the cultural zeitgeist. Songs come and they go, and that's why people are remaking the old music, because that's the stuff that had the chance to really stick around. People would buy the albums and they would listen to them over and over again, and then they'd tell their friends, and their friends would buy them, and yada yada yada. That's how music truly became memorable. Like, NSYNC's No Strings Attached is probably not great music. I'm not gonna lie. But I enjoy that album because it has sentimental reason, because I remember buying that CD and just listening to it over and over again. And as a result, we still pop it in once in a while to listen to it. And that's how it used to work. But Spotify removed that barrier. And then the second and most important thing is Spotify took away the reason to buy CDs. So when I was younger, I remember buying 3 to 5 CDs a month. And some of my friends who were real audiophiles, they would buy sometimes 10 to 15 albums a month. Now, CDs retailed for $19, but most people could get them for $14. So let's say that I did the minimum and bought 3 CDs a month. That would be $42 a month, 12 times a year. That's $504 a year. And you multiply that over millions of copies in some cases for certain albums. Well, then record companies made money, the bands made money. It led to a tour that would be usually successful and a lot of radio airplay. So, that's pretty good money. Well, once Spotify really started to catch on, the amount of albums I changed went from 3 to 5 albums a month to 1 to 3 albums every few months. Like maybe I average 1 album or less a month to buy, because I still believe in buying physical media. And if there's an album that I especially like or an artist I truly like, I am going to buy that album because I don't want to lose it one day. But with Spotify, I certainly don't buy as much as I need to. I no longer need to buy an album to listen to the songs. I can just listen to them. Now, I listen to them with a few ads, but, there you go. Now, actually, I don't even listen to them with a few ads because I have YouTube Music and Apple Music because, Apple One, I suppose. And so I can just listen to as much music as I want. I'll buy the personal favorites, but otherwise I don't need to do that. But you wonder why the music industry doesn't make the money it used to make. It's like, well, because they turned all of those paying album purchasers into non-paying album purchasers. Now, some people might say, well, but you're paying for Spotify, you're paying for Apple Music, you're paying for Amazon Music, you're paying for YouTube Music. You are still paying for it. It's like, yeah, but it's at a fraction. Like, what do you think a record company would be more happy with? Me spending about $45 a month on music, or me spending $10 a month on music? And by the way, they don't even get all that $10. They get little pennies if you happen to listen to the songs that they own. Like, the music business is basically destroyed. I mean, and then of course the internet, the other thing the internet in general did made so that people could write their own music and put it online. And that's great. I mean, it's kind of nice to have some of the gatekeeping down, but at the same time, the gatekeepers ensured that only the best musicians or the ones that had something got published. Now we have, you go to the new releases section under any of these music apps, and there's so many albums coming out, and who knows which ones are good and which ones aren't. It's like there's just too much, and so I think artists come and they go, and they will probably never make money. The music industry is fundamentally broken because of what Spotify has done. Now you have Disney here and other streaming services. Like, the bubble has burst for streaming, where it's like, yeah, we're spending billions of dollars on content that we can't make money off of. It never made sense why, to me anyway, why Bob Chapek wanted to put all the eggs in the Disney basket. He was like, hey, we don't need theatrical anymore. We don't need physical media as much. It's all dying. And it's like, yeah, but it made money. Like, right now, I'm paying $20 a month for my Disney and Hulu bundle. But in the past, do you know how many DVDs? I would buy so many movies, sometimes up to 20 movies a month. I hate to say this because that's a lot of money when you look back on it. But I bought these things, and they made a lot more money for me when they did that. Now, I give them like a flat fee. I can watch as much stuff as I want. And even though Disney's probably a bad example, because I will typically buy the animated Disney movies on disc, like Wish and Strange World, even if I don't like them very much. But for other companies like Paramount, Warner Brothers, it's like, well, why would I necessarily buy some of these movies or shows when I can just stream them as part of that $15 a month? Like, I mean, I remember working at Fry's how I would like buy seasons of TV shows that I liked so I could watch them, I could binge them, and it was fun. But I've recently gone through like a massive Chicago franchise binging where I have gone through all 9 seasons of Chicago Med. I'm on the 12th and most current season of Chicago Fire. I'm probably going to do Chicago PD at one point. And when I think about how much money I would have had to spend to buy the DVDs, that's hundreds of dollars that I no longer have to spend to watch that show or those shows. Now, as a consumer, that's good for me, but as a company, it's like, really? This is what streaming's doing to us. And yes, folks, I pay for the premium on Peacock, so I'm not even watching those pesky ads. Like, Peacock is literally making pennies on the dollar from me based on the value of what their shows and movies used to be. You know, we also have this issue with Xbox Game Studios or Microsoft shutting down like 4 big companies from Bethesda, and they will probably cut back more. And why is that? It's because Microsoft started Game Pass. They said, hey, you know what? We've got Netflix, we've got Spotify. Someone's going to make one of these for video game services. Why don't we do it? And they make this service that is great from a consumer point of view. Do you know how nice it is to download a game and just play it? I don't have to spend $60 on a blind purchase and hope that I will like it. And here's the thing, if I don't like it, I just stop playing it. I uninstall it. It's not any skin off my back. But if I do like it, I finish it, and then I probably will not buy it after that. In fact, if there's a real reason why the PlayStation 5 makes more money than the Xbox Series X, it's not because I have more systems out there, although I'm sure that helps a little bit. It's because their users have to buy games. Like if I wanted to play Spider-Man 2, I had to buy it. I couldn't get it for free. It's like I had to buy it. Now, thankfully, that game was awesome. I also had to buy Final Fantasy 16 and the most recent Final Fantasy 7 remake. I had to buy Demon Slayer if I wanted to play it on PS5. But some of these games are not on Xbox. But like when it came to like Halo 5, and this, by the way, Halo was always Xbox's golden goose. This is the system seller for years. And they put Halo 5 on Game Pass day one. And they wonder, why didn't Halo 5 sell very well? Well, maybe because Game Pass people which most people who have Xboxes could just download it for free. And again, I know some people say, well, it's not free, you're paying for Game Pass. Yeah, I'm paying $16 a month for Game Pass. You don't think like that's not counterproductive to what Microsoft is doing? Not only can I download Halo 5 and beat it, and I don't have to pay $60, I can download Psychonauts 2 the next week and beat it and not buy it. And in the past, I would have to purchase these games. Heck, even if I didn't purchase them at $60, if you waited long enough, they'd become $40, $30, even $20. At some point, you go like, okay, I'm going to buy the game because I want to play it. And that's one of the reasons why Microsoft spent like $74 billion on Activision, because, we need to feed the Game Pass content. We have to give them stuff. So now Activision games are on Xbox Game Pass. That's great. I can finally play the Crash Bandicoot remake. I can finally play Crash 4. The Call of Duty Advanced Warfare is still not up there, but when it goes there, I will download it. But I'm not buying these games. I'm just playing them. And look, I know that there's like this little sexy thing going on where it's like, if Netflix can get 240 million subscribers and most of them are paying $19.99 a month, that's let me see if I can't do my math here. That's $4.7 billion per month. You do it by 12, that's $57.5 billion per year. Like, oh, that sounds pretty good until you realize, yeah, they spent like 400 million or something on Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon movies. They spend $80 million on this. They spend all this money. And it's just, it ultimately doesn't work out the way people think. And then there's the server cost, there's the advertising. And the biggest thing, again, is these are movies people would have normally paid for. They would have bought them. And now they aren't. So it's interesting that this Disney press conference came out today, because I did want to talk about Microsoft shuttering like Tango games and things, even though they made hit games and everything. But the bottom line is, like, look, behind the scenes, as much as I love Hi-Fi Rush, they never made it available to purchase. It was just something you downloaded on Game Pass. Something like Hi-Fi Rush isn't going to make more people sign up for Game Pass. And if you don't have a physical copy, even the big fans aren't going to pay for it. Like, why would they buy a digital copy of the game when it's part of the subscription? It doesn't make any sense. And they cut the success of these games right out from underneath it. In fact, there are apparently internal talks from Microsoft, because they have a new Call of Duty game coming out, and they're typically going to put these games on day one. And there's talk like, well, should we hold off on that? Should we try to sell the game first before we put it on Game Pass? And the answer is yeah. Why wouldn't you do that? It's kind of like if Disney took a few Pixar films and they said, you know what? We're not going to sell movie tickets for those movies. We're not going to sell DVDs and Blu-rays for those movies. We're not even going to charge to rent it online. It's just part of a $7 subscription fee. Do you realize the millions upon millions of dollars they would be lighting on fire if they did that? Oh, wait, it looks like they did do that. That's right. They did that with Soul and Turning Red and Luca, of which 2 of those they definitely did not need to do that for. And one of them, they probably wouldn't need to do it if they just waited a few more months. But they did it, and they just lost a lot of money. And, of course, then the reputation of Pixar movies going straight to Disney Plus or being available, it's like, hey, why do people want to go back to the theaters? Why would they want to buy them again? We have just been giving them for free, and my kids can watch them over and over and over again. I never have to pay a dime to do so. Because, again, even though you are paying for the subscription service, the amount of times you watch it and the amount of other things you watch, it ends up being pennies on the dollar. So there's just been news report after news report this week, and I just kind of wonder, when are people going to sit down and think, you know what, the Spotify model doesn't work. It never has. And it probably never will. I mean, there's a reason you see less buffets today than you did 10 years ago. I remember, like, Hometown Buffet used to be the big thing. We'd go there once in a while, and you could really pig out there if you wanted to. You paid, well, I don't know how much you paid for it. I'm going to assume like somewhere between $20 and $25 because it was all you can eat. My parents paid for it. I was young. And you could fill the plate so many times. And, of course, the idea was, well, some people who are coming there won't eat as much, and so you won't make your money back that way. But the thing is, you're not going to spend $20, $25, which by today would probably be $35, and not eat as much as possible. Unless you're like a Korean barbecue place where the primary stuff is noodles and very, very thin meat, which is like a huge markup. Like, there's a reason hometown buffets and similar restaurants just went away, because you're not going to spend that kind of money unless you fully intend to take as much advantage of it. And if you're not going to eat that much, why would you go to hometown buffet? You could go to McDonald's and get a quarter pounder combo meal for $6, because yes, that's what they used to cost back then. So the buffet model didn't even work for buffets. And now they've been trying it for a long time. Now Netflix is finally a little profitable, but they still spend a lot of money. And because of all the costs involved, they would be making so much more if they would give their movies theatrical releases and sell them. It never made sense on why the future was, hey, you sell someone the movie at a ticket, you sell them a rental, you sell them a DVD, and then you sell them to cable, and you sell that movie like 4 times, where now it's like, hey, let's just skip all that. Let's just sell it to them once. And we're technically not even selling it to them. It just becomes part of a buffet. Like, that never made any sense to me. It still doesn't make sense. And I do love the open internet. I love that I can make this podcast, that you can listen, that I can talk to you. YouTube doesn't make money. So after 20 years, I mean, at some point, when are the companies going to say the ride is over? And what's the future going to look like? Because contrary to popular belief, these companies are not too big to fail, and these services are not so ingrained that they can't go away. I'm just wondering when the shoe is going to fall. I don't know. I guess we will see. But anyway, that's my little rant about, the Spotify, Netflix business models, why they have not worked, or why they will not work, and to put some clarification on why Xbox shuttered those Bethesda studios. It's very sad, but I would love to know what you think about any of this, so comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.
Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Just a few more things. First of all, the names that you see on the screen, these are our Patreon and YouTube member supporters, and I thank each and every one of them. Their support helps me make exclusive videos for Patreon and YouTube members, as well as keep the channel running, and of course is just of huge kindness to me. Also, don't forget to check out the iCritic-led podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, Deezer, whatever podcasting service you listen to, it is there. We definitely want to see you there. And hey, there's also other videos that you can check out. So, check out these other channels, these other videos, especially that one. I think that's a really good one.